For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to StratNewsGlobal. I'm Nitin Gokhale. On our daily program, The Gist, we discuss today the Pakistan attempt to continue to keep the pot boiling in Jammu and Kashmir, despite noises to the contrary and opinions and articles which point out that Pakistan is now behaving, it has got a ceasefire with India. To discuss the Pakistani strategy on its policy in Jammu and Kashmir, I'm joined by Lieutenant General D.S. Hooda, former Northern Army commander, and someone who has watched Jammu and Kashmir probably all his life in the uniform and post his retirement. Welcome to this program, General Hooda. You are on The Gist with me, Nitin Gokhale.
So thank you very much, Nitin. It's always a pleasure to be in a conversation with you, and the topic that you're talking about, I think, is very, very important today.
Thank you. So, as I was saying in the beginning, the whole impression in the past couple of years, and especially right from the beginning of 2022, after the so-called ceasefire was restored on the line of control with Pakistan, is that Pakistan has now started behaving, for whatever reason, for its own reasons, to stay out of the Financial Action Task Force, and therefore its activities, its designs on J&K are no longer as hostile as they used to be. But someone like you who watches the situation would perhaps have a take which most people will not know. So what's your first reaction when we hear Pakistan saying that they are now on their best behavior as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned?
So Nitin, we make an assessment. It has to be based on some very solid facts and data. And the report that you have come out with is, I think, outstanding in that respect. So let's just look at what has happened after the ceasefire last year. After the ceasefire last year, yes, there was some drop in infiltration. And I think the army chief, General Narwane, at that time is on record of saying that infiltration has reduced. But let's look at the data 2022. And what we are seeing in this year has been that 32 foreign terrorists have been killed in Jammu and Kashmir. And I'm including those who were killed while infiltrating and also, in the hinterland, as compared to only 2 in the last year in the corresponding period. So obviously, to me, the data suggests that one, infiltration has increased, and that more and more foreign terrorists are now sort of operating in Jammu and Kashmir. And where are they coming from, Nitin? They are all coming from Pakistan. So as I said, rather than impressions, it would be good if we can base our deductions on hard facts and hard data. And I said, in that context, the report that you put out is outstanding.
Exactly. The report that you mentioned is an attempt by us on both our websites, bharatshakti.in and stratnewsglobal.com, to send a team on ground and look at hard facts, like you mentioned, through documented evidence, going to the police stations, getting the FIRs, looking at the evidence collected by the police through satellite phones that were seized or were found on the terrorists, those who were eliminated. So in that context, if you really see both 2021 and 2022, and the second half of 2020, there is absolutely no drop. In fact, the infiltration attempts have remained steady as they were in the previous years. So the point that I'm trying to make here is one of the reasons behind compiling that data was to tell the world on our behalf, especially as someone who has watched this space for a long time, tell the world that Pakistan is not as innocent as it is made out to be. So in your view and your experience, does this kind of compilation, does this kind of documentation really help telling people, those who don't believe Pakistan or those who don't believe Indian claims, if we sort of circulate it around and giving it in European capitals, in US and elsewhere, would it at all help changing some perceptions?
Nitin, absolutely, it would. See, let's honestly look at the sort of impressions, particularly in the Western capitals, and the impression is that everything is happening is because of India's sort of very strong approach within Jammu and Kashmir, and that is actually what is leading to terrorism and leading to violence in the valley, and that Pakistan really has a limited role to play in this. And Nathan, that is not true, because every time you find that there is some check, some control on violence, if things are getting better in the valley, my own personal experience is that there will be an attempt by Pakistan to send in more terrorists and sort of keep the pot boiling. Also, you see, there is a difference in the public statements that are made by Pakistani leadership, Pakistani military leadership, to say that, we want peace with India and we are not interested in doing anything which could vitiate the atmosphere. Geoeconomics is very, very important to us. To counter these kind of narratives, I think we need to be very factual and very clear in giving our side of the evidence. And frankly, I have no hesitation in saying this. We have been sort of weak in in this. Merely saying Pakistan does this, Pakistan does that, really will not carry as much weight as if it is supported by real hard facts and hard evidence. And as I said, Nitin, I think you've done a tremendous job in that.
So, Gen Hooda, thanks for saying the work that we have done would be useful. But one of the questions that always goes around in people who are not very well informed about J&K and Pakistan's policy over years is that what does Pakistan achieve by doing what they're doing in J&K, despite the fact that it does not get them any final or full victory? Is this something that you would think gives them maximum gain and very minimal effort, is what Pakistan looks at as far as J&K policy is concerned?
So, Nitin, the question is important. I mean, sometimes it amazes me also. If you look about a decade back, the period of 2008, 9, 10, when really terrorism was so badly hitting the country in Pakistan. You had that Peshawar school attack, etc. Large forces were deployed on the Afghan border in the Fatah area. But still at that time also you saw, Pakistan sort of not giving up its policy towards India and as far as Kashmir is concerned. I think it is something that is, in their psyche, that here India is a much bigger nation. We are the only country that can bring in what they call strategic stability in the region by contesting India. And for them, it's a low-cost option, Nitin, that let's continue, whatever we are doing, terrorism in Kashmir, and keep large forces tied. Now, whether it serves them in the long run is something that they need to really, really sort of think and speculate about. I mean, look at the country today, the kind of mess it is in economically, and their fight against radicalization and terrorism. Economic engagement with India would really be of a positive boost for them. But as I said, unless this thought process that India is an existential threat, this psyche, this anti-India psyche, unless that goes, and particularly goes from the Pakistani army leadership thought process, we are going to continue to see this. Whether it's going to take them down a very slippery slope, Nitin, is clear. But at least in the short term and from what we are seeing now, they seem to think, this is something that will work for us.
That's right. In fact, despite the fact that they are economically in a very bad situation right now, I think they're going the Sri Lanka way in many ways, if we look at the reports. But let's widen the discussion a little bit. I mean, one thought after August 2021, when Afghanistan came under Taliban's control, there was a lot of glee in Pakistan establishment as well as amongst the commentators there that finally Pakistan has achieved what it wanted in Afghanistan. It's got its strategic depth, it's got its control over Afghanistan, and then India is going to be be at the receiving end of whatever problems would be there from terrorism emanating from that region. But the situation has really changed in less than a year, if we see. So, how do you look at the AFPAC situation vis-a-vis Kashmir in this last few months?
So Nitin, you are right. When Taliban took over, and the very hasty and chaotic withdrawal by the U.S. forces, and there was this sort of sense that, and even Imran said, this is like a victory for Pakistan. What has been achieved in Afghanistan? But I think when you look at the situation more closely of what is happening in Afghanistan, and the fact that there were a large number of terrorist groups, particularly the TTP, which had supported Taliban in its sort of victory over the Americans. And it was quite clear to some of us that this is not going to be an easy situation for Pakistan itself. TTP today is the largest group. If you look at the latest UN report on terrorist activities in Afghanistan, TTP is by far the largest group which is supporting Taliban, some strength of 3,000 to 4,000 terrorists in TTP. What we've also seen is increasing number of attacks, and these are recorded, that have taken place along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border on Pakistan security forces. And they're under so much pressure that they're now looking at a peace deal with TTP. I think it was last year in November or December that they went in for a peace deal with TTP. That ceasefire broke down. Now they've gone in for another ceasefire with the TTP, which also, frankly, the kind of demands that the TTP has raised, that we want Sharia law, we want, that merger of Fatah with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa should be reversed. I mean, these are demands that no government can accept. So I see a big problem there. We are also seeing problems about the Durand line with the Afghan Taliban. They've been preventing fencing as far as Pakistan is trying to do the fencing. So things are not, as hunky-dory with Pakistan as they thought. And my own sense is this issue with TTP is only going to get worse. So you will see instability clearly on the Afghan-Pakistan border in the coming months. And that is going to, be a major challenge with them as far as their internal security is concerned.
But that does not really affect their J&K policy, as we have seen. And therefore, let me come back to J&K. And since you've watched it so closely, you yourself taken decisions which have affected the Pakistani response and has got muted sometimes because of the kind of response and kind of strategies that you adopted as Northern Army Commander, and before that as Corps Commander. So post 2019, August 5th, 2019, when India abrogated or removed Article 370 from there, how do you see that situation? I know that you have been an advocate of a policy in Kashmir which should try and win over the youth there, apart from continuing the hard policy against Pakistani-backed proxy war. Just take a look back in these nearly 3 years now since 2019.
So one thing, sir, Nitin, there are two elements to tackling Kashmir. One is an external element and one is an internal element. The external element is continuing support from Pakistan to terror activities in Jammu and Kashmir. And as I said, even at the height of their internal security problem, they continued this policy. And to expect them to just roll it back now, I think is asking for too much. So you're going to continue to see maybe at slightly lower levels, but you're going to continue to see support. And I'm not talking about policy and diplomatic support, active support by sending in terrorists into Jammu and Kashmir. That aspect has to be tackled. Now you have to look at Pakistan, how you're going to deal with it politically, diplomatically, whether you need to also ensure some military plans, just as we did in 2016 and 2019, to deal with major terror attacks. Our own strengthening of the counter-infiltration grid. I think that's also key to making sure that these people are not able to come inside. And then there is the internal element, Nitin, and we cannot shut our eyes to it. The fact is that there is local terrorism. Now, we might say it's because of, the kind of messaging that is coming from Pakistan, the radicalization that is being fed because of Pakistan. But the fact is that the local youth are joining. And therefore, we need programs like counter-radicalization, de-radicalization. We need a certain amount of outreach, to the local population. We need a restart of political activity in whichever form, and I'm sure it'll probably start now that a lot of things. I think all these plus significant development efforts that the government is making, I think all this would also go to some of the angst and anger that has got built up in Jammu and Kashmir needs to be sort of dampened down. So I think we need to look at both the aspects: how to deal with Pakistan and its support to terrorist activities, and how we deal internally with the situation in Jammu and Kashmir. And when I'm saying Jammu and Kashmir, Nitin, I'm not talking only of Kashmir. I'm also talking of the Jammu region, because there has always been that feeling that Kashmir has got the sort of greater piece of the pie in development, political activity. That sense in Jammu has driven a little bit of alienation between the two regions. That Jammu issue needs to be addressed. The Kashmiri Pandit needs to be addressed. It's like a sore which is continually coming up. So that needs some kind of a healing. So all these issues, I think, need to be looked at.
Absolutely. In fact, you are absolutely bang on the money. We had sent a team recently which went both to south of Pir Panjal and north of Pir Panjal, across the hinterland. And the alienation and the resentment in Jammu region was far larger than it was in the Kashmir Valley. About the government steps or lack of government development or government effort was much more higher, the anger against government in Jammu region. I mean, that's something that I think the government should take note of and make sure that there is a sense of balance between what they do for both the regions, Jammu and Kashmir, in that sense. Final question, Gen
Absolutely,
Hooda,
absolutely, Nitin. No, I just want to say, absolutely no. You are one of the few people who's pointed this out. The general feeling is that Jammu has been very happy with what's happened. So if you actually really, I mean, this is something that I'm glad that you also looked at this Jammu region in detail, because everybody is sort of focused on Kashmir only. Yeah, Nitin.
So we will come out with that report. It's like a ground report, reportage done by our team. We are hoping to do this in August to coincide with the 3rd anniversary of the abrogation of Article 370. And again, we'll have an occasion to discuss that in much more detail. But yes, it was an eye-opener to some of our team members as well as to me when they came back and reported. And we were discussing our editorial approach to this entire story in Jammu and Kashmir. But final question on this particular aspect about Pakistan's continuing role in terrorism and proxy war in Jammu and Kashmir. The FATF has been putting Pakistan under pressure. It's kept them in the grey list. That doesn't seem to have altered any of the approach, or maybe it has just muted the approach from Pakistani side. What would you advocate as a mix of approach to in dealing with Pakistan or putting pressure on Pakistan? Would the European or the Western nations and maybe even the Asians would be able to put some pressure on Pakistan if these kind of documented evidence is provided time and again to them, and then they change their mind? Or is it also ingrained in the Western diplomatic mindset that Pakistan is not the culprit and India is just making the noises? What would be your thought on that?
So, Nitin, one is what you are saying is right. So whenever something happens, like for FATF, for example, you will find the Pakistani is doing something, putting some leader in prison. I mean, the latest incident of, I think, is it
Sajid Mir.
Sajid or something.
Yeah.
Sajid Mir, who was, involved in the Mumbai attacks, suddenly he resurfaces and he's put in prison. Not for Mumbai, but for a terrorism financial related case. This was all done to please the FATF. So they are able to sort of say that, we are taking action that you asked us to take. As I said earlier, Nitin, we have not been able to provide sufficient sort of evidence of Pakistan supporting terrorism in Kashmir. And that is something that constantly needs to be done. This is it. These are the dossiers. This is what we need to pass around to various countries. And why not? See, it's not as if there is a lack of support for India. I think over a time, things have changed. So if you look at the Balakot strikes, you will find that internationally, India did have a fair amount of support for what it has done. Now, I think we just need to sort of reinforce those points. As I said, the reports of the kind that you are bringing out, I mean, such reports, every time we were capturing terrorists, it was clear these people were coming from Pakistan. I mean, the kind of evidence, the food packets, the weapons that they were carrying, the markings on their medicine packs. I mean, everything clearly, maps showing where they have started from, GPS location. I mean, everything was clear. But every time you talk to Pakistan, they say, look, there's no terrorists coming from our side. So all this information needs to be actually sort of put out in a much more comprehensive and cohesive way. I think certainly it will help in, convincing other countries that this is what Pakistan is doing.
Well, I hope others also start doing this, and I'm sure the government will have its own way of propagating it, not just our report, but their own ways of compiling, because it has government has much more resources. The military will, of course, help. But that's a small effort that we tried, and we will continue to try, as I mentioned, go to the ground and get as much evidence as possible. But General Hooda, as usual, a great pleasure in speaking to you, and your insights are always very, very useful to somebody who's studying JNK all the time, and especially our viewers who continue to tell us that they benefit, especially the younger lot, from the discussions that we have on our programs on StratNewsGlobal as well as BharatShakti.in. Thanks very much for your time. We'll have another occasion, as I mentioned, in August, sometime when we come up with that ground report. But for the moment, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nitin. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So viewers, do keep watching The Gist from Tuesday to Thursday, and all other programs on StratNewsGlobal. You know where to reach us. You already are a subscriber. And then spread the word to your colleagues, friends, family. And of course, keep sending feedback. Your feedback is always taken on board, and we then try and get you the kind of discussions and reports that you want. For the moment, it's goodbye.